Alright everybody, so right now what's happening is we're putting some Eibach springs, lowering springs on this Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited right here. This is a 2001, bought it a couple weeks ago. It's a little scary on the interstate. I'm used to driving Corvette, S10, Cadillac, CTS, stuff like that. Also this little Civic. So this is big change from all that, and I kind of don't like it. It's a little wobbly on the interstate. Sways back and forth a lot. I want it to be more sporty. These springs only drop it down 1 inch in the front, 1.3 inches in the rear, so it's not going to drop it too much, but I would assume that the spring rate is a little bit higher on these. I didn't actually check the data on that, but that would be my assumption. Since they are lowering springs, that is typically the case. So I'm going to go ahead and swap these bad boys out. It's a pretty straightforward process. This truck does not have like struts or anything like that. The spring is right there. All you've got to do is raise and support the vehicle properly. Put your coil spring compressors on there, compress that factory spring, pull it out, compress the new spring, pop it in. So that's what we're going to do right now. Okay, so now you've got your spring compressors removed. Go ahead and take this little rubber boot that's on the bottom, reinstall it back in the Jeep. You'll see there's a hole where this needs to go in. Make sure that goes back in the hole. And then grab your other spring and get ready to compress that down for installation. So, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have the new spring orientated the same way up and down as your old spring was. Now, if you notice, this one has the coils more tightly on this side than on this side, and the factory spring is not like that in any way, shape, or form. So the way that I'm assuming is supposed to go back in is to follow the way this does at the bottom, and then the way this is at the top. It looks to me like this is going to be the bottom based on what I see here. So I'm going to reinstall it like that. So I'm going to get this spring out of the way. I'm going to take my spring compressor tool here, get it started by hand, and then I'm going to go ahead and use my wrench to get it compressed down to the point where I can get it. Alright, so now you've got the spring back in position. Final thing you want to do is remove your, well, first of all, make sure everything's aligned properly where it needs to be. And then remove your coil spring compressors by loosening them a little bit each side at a time. So loosen one at a time, a little bit, loosen the other side a little bit, make sure you release the tension evenly. Make sure you're being very careful. You might want to wear eye protection while you're doing this as well. Definitely something to protect your hands. Make sure your jack is supported properly, because the last thing you want is is this spring come flying back out on you. I doubt that would happen, but I don't want to see anybody to get hurt either, so just make sure you're being very cautious, very careful around these springs. They are dangerous. They are under a lot of tension. Alright, now we're on to the rear, which is pretty much the same process as the front, except you see the coils aren't as tight, so it's going to be actually easier to get this thing out. So let's do it. So again, now you've got the old spring out. The next thing to do is compare the two springs, find out which way is up and which way is down. Again, it looks like this plastic side is going to go down. And the same sort of thing applies. There is a notch on the rubber down on the suspension that this has to go into, so be wary of that. And make sure you get that bump stop back in there that you saw kind of fly away when I pulled the spring out. So decompress this spring, compress this one, slap it in the truck like we did in the front. So there we have it. Actually, what I ended up doing was attaching this long rod to my air wrenches here, this one, and my impact wrench as well. And I was able to bring that up from the bottom, get it in the bottom of my coil spring compressor, and kind of just zip those out. So I got that back in place. If your bump stop is giving you a little trouble going back in, you can take like a big pry bar or a big flat bladed screwdriver, stick it between here, and use it to push that down. Make sure that gets seated back in there, otherwise it's just going to fall off and you won't have a bump stop. But that's it. Go do the other side and you're ready to roll here. I'll give this about a week or so to settle in, and then I'll come back and do some measurements around the wheels. That way you guys can get an idea as how much it actually drops the vehicle. It says 1 inch in the front, 1.3 inches in the rear. I actually didn't take measurements before. I probably should have done that. But you can probably look up what the factory heights are, or compare your factory ride height to this ride height to get an idea as to how much it actually dropped. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you check out my other videos and subscribe to my channel as well. Thank you again.